Hi everyone, just before we get into this episode of Type 1 on 1, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for pressing play. I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, don't forget to hit subscribe and you'll be notified when new episodes come about. You can find us across podcast land on Spotify, iTunes, all those good places as well. Secondly, anything you hear on this podcast should not be taken as medical advice. I am, of course, not a professional, and you do need to seek advice from your healthcare team before making any changes to your diabetes management. And lastly, if you want to say hello, I do have an Instagram page specifically for the Type 1 on 1 podcast. You can find it at Studio Type 1 on 1. That's at Studio Type 1, the number, on 1, the number. And you can also come and say hello and follow me on my personal page, which is at Miss Jen Grieves. And all of that will be noted in the episode description. Hi everyone, and welcome to Type 1 on 1, a podcast that delves into the obscure, complex and challenging world of life with Type 1 diabetes. I'm Jen Grieves, and each week, with the help of some brilliant guests, I'll be showing that there is no normal when it comes to handling this whopper of a chronic condition, because we're all pretty much figuring out the messiness of day-to-day life with diabetes as we go. And most of all, even though it doesn't always feel like it, we are absolutely not alone. A medical diagnosis can often be shocking or confusing, but imagine being told by your social media following that you've in fact received the wrong diagnosis. That's exactly what happened to today's guest, Justin Eastzer, better known as Diabetech to his hundreds of thousands of followers online. He has his TikTok audience in particular to thank for getting the correct diagnosis of type 1.5 diabetes, or LADA, 6 months after he was misdiagnosed with type 2 at the age of 30. But far from letting it hold him back, Justin's faced his diagnosis in a way that has propelled him forward through his career, and now literally as he's currently in the middle of what he calls a digital nomad moment, sharing the latest updates in diabetes technology from far-flung corners of the world, all while, of course, managing the condition itself. And I'm very happy to have caught him today, and we're even on the same continent. So welcome, Justin, to Type 1 on 1.
Thank you. I'm glad that you could nail me down during my digital nomad moment.
Yeah, I really thought for a minute that you were just going to be, moving too fast for me to catch you, but we've made it happen and I'm very happy about it. So thanks for joining me today.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
And where do you join us from? Paint us a little picture.
I am in Lisbon right now. I've been here for a week. I was in Floripa, Brazil just before, and I'm going to Valencia in a few weeks.
Yes, where hopefully we're crossing paths. We're going to make some fun content. I'm going to have, hopefully at the time that this goes out, a nice little special something on my YouTube channel. So that'll all be linked for you to go and check out. But because we have both done the digital nomad moment, and I'm a bit more grounded now, but the adventure with type 1 diabetes, it's all possible. So we're going to get into that. But you're loving it, right? That's the headline.
Yeah, it's great. There's been challenging moments, but it would be challenging for anyone with or without diabetes. Just some different challenges, with the diabetes, and I'm so glad that I'm on your show because we kind of connected in Amsterdam about our travel experiences and stuff, and there's a lot of overlap there too, which is cool.
Yeah, really cool. So we'll come back to that for sure. But as I mentioned in the intro, you were originally diagnosed with type 2 4 years ago. And it was in fact your TikTok following that alerted you to the fact that this might not be quite right. So I'd love to first of all know what you thought when you first saw those messages, because you're obviously kind of getting to grips with one diagnosis. So did you take note, or like where were you at in all of it in terms of like, what on earth is this right?
Yeah. Well, at that point, I didn't have much of a following on TikTok, at least. I was a creator in the tech space, so I had a following on like YouTube. But on TikTok, I had some videos and I was trying to establish myself there. And I just put some videos up about this diagnosis I had and my blood glucose monitor, which I thought it was so cool that sent the readings to my phone. So I wanted to show that off. And so as I made these videos, and took people through, what my doctor kind of had me doing over time, this community found my videos, and the videos blew up and got all these comments saying, you have type 1.5, you have type 1, you should get a pump, you should get a CGM, you should get an endocrinologist, you should get tested for type 1, the autoantibody test. And, maybe on the first video, I was surprised it like blew up and I was getting all these comments, but I was like, oh, let me just like keep following my doctor's advice. Like I'm taking care of it. But after I made a few and then the videos still continued to get all of this response, I had to act on what the community was telling me. So I went and got the autoantibody test thanks to them, and it came out positive for type 1. And it was an endo who I got that gave me that test. So I had the endo and I finally could get the help I needed. But it had been 6 months of misdiagnosis at that point, and I was feeling so sick. And so, yeah, I mean, I followed their advice pretty soon after I started like searching for solutions.
Yeah. So with that, with the fact that you weren't feeling it much better, or you certainly weren't feeling yourself, did you have an inkling that maybe this wasn't quite what it was, or what you thought? Or was it just, as a lot of us do, we look to the medical experts for the advice, we get the advice, we get the medication and the diagnosis, and off we go trying to figure it out, how had that all come about?
Yeah, I thought I was addressing the problem because I was doing what my doctor had me doing. And yes, I was feeling sick and fatigued, and I was aware of it, but it was like a slow process. I lost a lot of weight and I didn't realize I lost so much weight. It wasn't until a few friends had told me, like the first friend, whatever, I was like, oh, thanks. Like I'm looking skinny, cute. But then after I had a few people say it, I was like, wait a second, there's something wrong because multiple people are saying one person said I look sick skinny. So, and then I finally weighed myself and I was like, whoa, okay, I lost a lot of weight and I've done nothing to do this, right? Like I haven't been like eating more healthy or anything like or working out anymore. So I was concerned when I noticed that. And yeah, I was fatigued. Yeah, I was peeing a lot. But I don't know, because I didn't know what the signs were, I was just like, okay, this is a phase I'm having right now, but I'm addressing the problem and it will get better. But it didn't get better. So I don't know. I just feel like I was so in it, it was hard to see. And I feel like that happens with a lot of people. Is they wind up in DKA, right? Like they didn't realize it's not until it gets really bad that you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is something.
Yeah, and when it's gradual like that, I think it becomes your norm, and you can explain away these things as adults
Yeah.
with busy lives, all of it, or just, I'm feeling a bit under weather at the moment. I think it's completely understandable. Yeah, of course. How did you feel being kind of confronted, maybe isn't the right word, but the diagnosis of type 1 and the information that came with that in comparison to the type 2 diagnosis? Did you feel very differently, or was there a sense of relief? Like, do you remember?
No, I think it both sucked. Both diagnoses sucked, I think. Like I wasn't excited for either of them. I think at least with type 2 when they were like just take this pill. I was like, okay, I have type 2 diabetes. I just need to take a pill, like it's that simple. So yeah, I mean maybe that was just like, oh, I'm just popping these pills every day. It's like it's managed. And then with type 1, when I first got insulin, like that was a big moment, a big scary moment, an emotional moment. I cried. I was afraid to inject myself. This was a new normal. Taking a pill, I'd taken Advil. I'd taken pills before, but an injectable, a needle, that's scary. Having to do it yourself. That was the first time I ever had to inject myself with something or put a needle through my skin. Um, so that was scary. And then I guess, yeah, hearing that I would need to take insulin with all of my meals, that was another layer of like, what do I have to do? Like, I'm 30 years old. Like, how do I? No, I shouldn't have to do this. I'm so young. It felt surreal to be told that. It was a whole world that I didn't know existed.
Did you have any connections? I'm just conscious that you were diagnosed as an adult, which is a story that's quite different from mine. So, as an adult who's kind of very independent, living across a different side of the country to your family, did you have any kind of reference point for what type 1 diabetes was? Did you have any connections that could help you kind of, obviously online
Yeah.
is one thing, but going through this day to day and needing kind of that support of family or friends, like were you able to
I
access that?
I feel very fortunate to have had a few people in my life that had type 1, and I never really knew much about it. It was not something we talked about, but as soon as I was diagnosed, within days, I was texting all of them. Because I didn't wanna overburden any of them with questions, so I was like, I could go to each one of them for different questions that I feel like cater to my relationship with them. I mean, one of my friends that has type 1, actually, one of these people, very close friend. So this added a whole new layer to our friendship, which is kind of awesome. But the other few, we weren't as close, but it was like someone I worked with, someone I met on a dating app, someone I went on dates with, and then my best friend. Between all of these people, I was able to engage with them and be like, what's the tech you're using? Who's the doctor you're seeing? And I got my endo from one of them. I was told about open source DIY systems, AID systems. It wouldn't be like I wouldn't have started that if it weren't for this friend that told me, "You're really techie. You should look into that, automated insulin system." And then I talked to another guy who's gay, who I had met him on a dating app, and I asked him about like dating and how's that, confidence and insecurities there, and how do you manage these things in different situations. So I'm so thankful I had some community built in, and we could all talk about this thing that we never spoke about before because it wasn't a point of conversation in our relationship, and it wasn't really a norm. They didn't seem to be always talking about it either in any way.
Right. And it strikes me there from what you said and the way you kind of instinctively approached it that you have this innate curiosity and a quest to find information, which I think for a lot of people can be very overwhelming to even know where to begin to approach. And it's amazing that you had those sources of support. Um, was there ever a point where between the information you were getting online, the information you were getting from an endo, the information you were getting from friends, about everything from AID, which a lot of people don't come into contact with for a while, to things like dating, and all of this is type 1, as everyone listening knows. Did that curiosity help, or was there a time where it was just like, wow, this is overwhelming?
It was overwhelming at first, but not because of the technology, but because of this new lifestyle I was going to have to follow, like carb counting and monitoring activity and all of these lifestyle things. The technology excited me. I mean, it did from day one when I had that blue blood
Mm.
glucose monitor. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. It uses Bluetooth and it sends my numbers to my phone and I could see a graph. How cool is that?" I didn't realize I was living like 5 years prior, in technology, but I thought it was cool. So when I heard about like continuous glucose monitors and that I could track your glucose every 5 minutes, like I was like, sign me up. That sounds awesome. And I want to talk about it. And I want to tell people about it. And I want to test it out. And I want to make videos on it. And then, oh, there's smart insulin pens. I want to try that. I want to test it out. I want to make videos. Insulin pens, AID systems, you name it. I wanted to get my hands on it so that it could make my life better. I can ask questions about it, and then I could create content to help other people understand it more and go through that learning experience with me.
Yeah. So jumping into the tech a bit prematurely, I'm going to kind of dial back in a minute, but having already built an online presence around technology, how quickly did this become very type 1 diabetes focused or diabetes technology focused? And did you already have an awareness that not everyone felt like you in terms of being able to feel comfortable exploring different technology systems, different things out there that actually you could help because it's something that you were excited by and enjoyed?
Yeah, I didn't know much I knew nearly nothing about the community and what was out there. I had my YouTube channel, Justin Tech, and I kept doing that separately. I never brought diabetes content onto that channel because that would, you know, isolate all of my following that was following for a very specific reason and not diabetes tech, right? So I wanted to keep that the way it was. I continued making content there. But what wound up happening was that this TikTok that wound up going from Justin Tech to Diabetech. And I just created content only on TikTok at first. And I did that probably for at least a year before I started any other pages. I was just focused on Justin Tech as my main thing, and Diabetech was a hobby. It was just something like whenever I had an idea for a little video, I'd make it and post it. And then as it grew, that's when I eventually kind of flipped it, and then I started a YouTube channel, Diabetech, and all of the other pages that I have now. And but as I was receiving these technologies, yeah, any videos I was making about these devices and sharing about them was only on TikTok at first. And it just resonated with people. I was getting messages of tips on how to use them, or thank you so much for this video. I feel empowered to now go wear that, things like that, and this response and my entire Diabetic brand has been guided thanks to the community. I created a content or product for people to watch, and then they helped mold it and then allow it to evolve into what it is today because I've learned what the needs are for people, and I continue to learn what the needs are, and I continue to ask questions about, what do you want? You know what I'm capable of. What do you want now? So I try to check in with everyone often, or like read the comments and find out, how I should grow.
Nice. And did it help you process your own diagnosis, do you think?
Oh
And does it
yeah.
continue to do so? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It did very much in the early days, right? Whenever I had a question or a scary low or whatever, or cried or had a breakdown, right? Like my first bad low during one of the most fun weekends, Pride in Palm Springs, and having a really bad low, and just the traumatic experience that felt like I wasn't able to be like having fun with everyone because I was having this terrible experience. Being able to make a video about that and then hear that I'm not alone and that other people have experienced that too and tell me that was very helpful. And then being able to provide that for other people has been helpful too.
Going from that quite vulnerable time, and I think type 1 diabetes, well, personally in my experience, continues to make me vulnerable at points when I'm least expecting it. But that particularly intense period of learning where you're feeling things for the first time, like the hypos, etc., that you've never felt before, 30 years into your existence, you sit here in front of me today, very confident, very comfortable. And I'm not saying that you don't have insecurities, and I'm sure we'll come on to those, but you're entrenched in the community with fellow type 1s, with diabetes companies. You're in the business of diabetes. For people listening who wish they could feel kind of a bit more empowered or a bit more confident about this thing that is frustrating and challenging, like, how have you built that confidence in what strikes me as a relatively short space of time?
Well, I haven't just built this confidence while having diabetes. I've been building it my entire life. So I've said it before that I feel very grateful for being diagnosed so late in life because I had the years to build up the confidence in dating and relationships and saying yes or no to things that I don't want to do, um, well before this diagnosis. And I've learned that communication is helpful in relationships and growth. And so all of these lessons that I've learned over time, including other health issues, have given me context and um, the growth I needed in order to feel comfortable talking about all of this stuff. I'm also this type of person. I like to talk about things with people like this. Like I don't feel the need to hide these experiences from people, and I think I feel more empowered to share these because of the effect that I've seen. I don't think I didn't set off to create content that takes people into a vulnerable moment, but I knew that I could get a lot by posting it online and get some support. And then the more I found that it was helping other people, I felt more confident in creating these videos. There are moments where I make a video and it's very vulnerable, and I'm going to post it. And I'm like, oh, it's a little weird that like some companies that I work with on a very professional level like are going to see this, but it's like it's who I am and what I do, and I'm fine with that. And I would never post something that I didn't feel really comfortable. Like I would never make something that I didn't think felt right. So I don't know if I'm able to help at least one person tackle some sort of struggle or obstacle they have with this video that took me 15 seconds in a vulnerable space. Like I think it's worth making.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the humanness that we need when we're talking about diabetes tech and what it can do for us. There are humans attached to these devices, and you know that's a really important reminder for anyone involved with creating these tools, with the UX of these tools. Yes, the tools are amazing, but it's about what they do for our lives and how they make us feel a lot of the time. So yeah, you're absolutely doing a service there. um, I'm wondering, as someone who was diagnosed as an adult, and you don't have to answer this, speaking of vulnerability, if it is too vulnerable, was there a feeling of having to let go of a Justin that existed pre type 1, or is this more like an evolution where you've added this layer of, like, as you say, you had health things before, it's like greater perspective, greater layers of resilience, things like that?
Yeah, that's probably the hard part about getting diagnosed, I think, later in life. Maybe at any age where you were able to remember a large portion of your life and like the way things were before. I do look at photos and in a way where I'm like, this is before diagnosis and this is after diagnosis. And I hate that I do that. I don't hate that I do that. It's just the way I look at photos. It's a combination of diabetes and then long COVID, which is another thing I've struggled with, which is like pretty in line with the diabetes. Like they affect each other so much. And that's something that I'm growing through and hoping to get better from. And it's been a journey. Um, but I don't feel, and as it relates to the diabetes, it goes hand in hand with the long COVID too, though. I don't feel as free as I used to. I feel like I'm in like invisible shackles, handcuffs, um, and that I can't just go be the way I used to. And that's hard. I look at pictures of myself at Coachella before diagnosis. And I just like, and I see myself smiling in those photos, and it just hurts a little bit because I know like how I felt in those moments. I felt like I could just do anything and use smartly and not have repercussions. And so that's been an adjustment for me for sure. That's been I don't feel like even a night out on a Friday is the same as it used to be. So that's tough.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening who were diagnosed as an adult can absolutely resonate and hear you on that one. What has helped you move through kind of adjusting to um, this condition, the new quote unquote normal? And how do you stay focused on the more positive aspects of things?
Well, what's helped me move through it would be just rolling with the punches, becoming more of a spontaneous person or reactive person. I'm very proactive, and it's helpful to be proactive with diabetes. I mean, you should be proactive with diabetes, but also it innately is a reactive disease. You have to react to things because you could just walk outside in Lisbon and 5 minutes later, the hills made you go low and you weren't prepared. This has happened many times. So you just have to be like,
Those
all
hills
right,
do
yeah,
not play around.
they don't. They don't. And so you have to just be like, all right, like this is the situation. We're going to slow down. We may sit down, eat some low snacks, and chill and relax. You have to take life a bit slower, which is something that I've always needed. So it's not the worst thing that's happened to me in that case. Like, I'm glad that diabetes has helped me slow down a bit. And I think what's helpful for me is communicating to the people I love and the people I spend a lot of time with how this disease works, because then they will know how to handle those situations and not be like, "Oh, Justin wants to slow down again." If they understand what, like, that I'm not in control of that, then they'll be fine, right? They're not gonna make a fuss about that because it's out of my control. So, I think that that's really important for people in order to feel like you're not burdening people and slowing people down, which is often a feeling that you feel. And then when you're low, you're getting even more paranoid and anxious. By communicating with these people about how diabetes works and how activity and food and insulin and sugar, all of these things are part of it, that will make you, and has made me, the most comfortable in these situations. It's not perfect. There's still moments where I feel these insecurities, but especially because my friends watch my content, they've learned so much, and they'll even be proactive and be like, like, did you pre-bolus yet? Or or the food's gonna be here in 20 minutes if you want to pre-bolus, or like, I got some snacks for you. Like, really
Stop.
supportive things. Yeah, my friends often
That's
surprise
amazing.
me with the things that they say. And I have some good friends. Like, they don't say things. They also learn like what not to say through my videos. So I feel really fortunate to have these people in my life that go out of their way to watch some of my content and learn and apply them in our friendship.
Yeah, that's lovely. Have you found it easier to let people help you? You strike me as someone very independent, and a go-getter. Has that kind of response, being like, oh, okay, they do understand this to a point, or they are helping me, or this, it is okay to ask for help. Has that kind of
It's
become
tough.
easier, if you like?
It's tough to ask for help for me, I think. I want to be as independent as possible, but you kind of have to be okay with asking help. Like, otherwise you'll pass out.
You
like,
literally
like
that.
and that's not going to help anyone. So you have to just feel okay with asking people for what you need in the moment if you really need it. And so I try to put myself in the situation where I won't have to ask for help. I try to carry more low snacks than I think I'll need, whenever I can. I try to think ahead and put myself in these situations. But yeah, diabetes can be so unpredictable too. You do need to just be okay to ask for help, or, let a friend know, hey, I like can't talk right now. Can we just sit down? Or do you mind like going to grab me some orange juice? I need to just sit down for a second. Or, um, I was on a hike in Lisbon, and I ran out of my low snacks. I didn't realize the hike would be so intense. And I had two people in the group give me snacks. I didn't ask. And I felt bad accepting them, but I did because I knew I needed them. But it still felt like I was relying on these people, and that if they weren't there, I wouldn't have been okay.
Yeah,
So I don't like that feeling,
yeah.
but you accept it.
Yeah, and I found I've had similar experiences, halfway up mountains and on boats and goodness knows where. But I think in that moment, as I've shrunk into myself and maybe given myself a bit of a minute about how did you get yourself into this situation or whatever, within the blur of a hypo or whatever it is, actually then the best of humanity comes through, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like, people are good. And I kind of take a lot of heart in that reminder. I don't know, because it's not about me in
Yeah.
that moment. I can just, yeah, take some comfort in that, in what is an uncomfortable situation. Maybe not at the time, but certainly pretty soon after my glucose has come back up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's hard
It's
to
so,
think straight. Like the paranoia and anxiety is rushing in. Like these thoughts are not real. Like don't let them control you. Remind yourself this will pass. I think that that's important.
yeah. Do you ever get that in a hypo where you're like, will this feeling ever end? What are your hypo symptoms like? Are
I
they
know it will end. I know it will end because it ends every time. It always
right?
ends. um I mean, they can get the worst is like, sweating, just close to feeling like passing out, very anxious and paranoid, and you're so nervous and you're scared, dizzy. I think those are about that's like the worst it gets, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But if I keep eating low snacks, I'll be fine. And I
Yeah.
try to do the math. Like I try to do the math as best as I can, as like how many grams are going in. Um, and I've gotten really good at not overdoing it, which is
That's
you
a
need to
skill.
also remind yourself like don't overdo it. Like you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think that took me like literally decades, probably more because there weren't CGMs, so I didn't realize I was overcorrecting. But looking back now, I'm like,
Yeah.
that is so obvious. I was doing it every time, just on the roller coaster. This episode of Type 1 is sponsored by Dexcom. Using Dexcom CGM has given me so much confidence to make informed diabetes treatment decisions in the moment. You can choose to wear it on your arm or your abdomen, which is so great to give those sites a break. And all Dexcom CGMs have the share and follow feature, even when connected to an insulin pump. So your family and friends can see your glucose levels and get alerts, giving that extra bit of support when needed. Head to Dexcom.com to request your free Dexcom ONE Plus sample. Always read the user manual for important product aspect and limitations. Talk to your doctor for diabetes management terms and conditions and terms of use. So let's talk about your journey with the tech personally before we go on to kind of helping others. What's the journey been like for you with tools and management? Did you start on pens? As you mentioned, you were introduced to things like automated insulin delivery very quickly. What's the journey been for you?
Yeah. So I started on like insulin pens, just typical ones, no brains to it. And then 3 months into diagnosis, and at this point, I had my endo and my diabetes educator, and my diabetes educator played an integral role in preparing me for all of the tech and getting me excited about it and telling me about all the things that were available because she knew what I was doing already, and then wanted me to continue doing it and try out all these things. So 3 months in, I started using a smart insulin pen, the InPen, and that was an awesome device because it's an insulin pen that connects to your phone and has like the brains of a pump. There's it has all of your settings and can tell you how much insulin to take based off of your glucose level. So it's kind of giving you this like AID a little bit, but like only whenever you like go to inject. And then you can do corrections too. So that I used for 3 months. And then I started on Omnipod, the Omnipod that didn't have automated insulin, and used that for 1 month to train myself on how to use it and also for my diabetes educator to understand what my settings are on that pump. Then after that month was when I started on DIY Loop, which is an open source app that's created by the community with automated insulin delivery. And at the time it was the only automated system. Or maybe Tandem may have had theirs at that point, but Omnipod didn't. Omnipod 5 wasn't out yet. Or like it was about to, yeah. It wasn't out for another like 8 months. So I was able to get Omnipod with automated insulin with this system. And then there are a bunch of other settings that are really cool in it. And I talk all about it on my channel. If people go to my YouTube, they can like watch videos about it and learn. And so that was a really cool way to get into it though. I got like kind of the best automated system out there that was on, you just had to find online. And my diabetes educator really helped me out with that. And then since then, I've tried a lot of systems because that's kind of what my main goal is now, is to try all the systems and be able to talk about them. So I tried another open source app called Trio. I've used Tandem Mobi. I recently just did that and put out a bunch of content on that. And then I also have tried Omnipod 5 with the iPhone app, which is awesome. And then next there's a bunch of pumps I want to try. I want to try out the Twist, Medtronic, and Beta Bionics are a few that I'd like to try out next.
With all of those pumps and these different companies and everything, where do you recommend people start if they're curious about pumps? What sort of questions should they be seeking to find answers to? And like where to begin, apart from your YouTube channel, obviously.
Yeah, it was like the first place you got to go to is Diabetech. Um, well, I think that there are a lot of things you need to keep in mind, like form factor, right? Like you want to search the different you want to like think about what your lifestyle is and how these different insulin pumps in a form factor way would interact with that, like which ones are waterproof, which ones are tubeless, which ones are tubed, which one can it be adhered to the body in different areas, which one has the best algorithm for me and my lifestyle and the features that allow me to work out really hard and seamlessly adjust for that. um which ones have a system that allows me to forget about my diabetes more. They're different systems you interact with differently, and some may be able to be more in the back of your mind. Like with Beta Bionics, you don't have to carb count. It's a different way of thinking. So there's a lot of different things to keep into account when it comes to the physical look of the device and the feel and the way you're wearing it, and then the system, and then the algorithm and the features that algorithm brings, and then which phone it works with. There's a bunch of things to look into, and videos on my page and like comparison videos can help you kind of figure out at least a good way to start to see like, all right, which one should I consider first, which one kind of goes with my lifestyle best.
Yeah. And through your trials, for you personally, has anything surprised you about those things you mentioned, the different features, the different algorithms, where you've thought, oh, this doesn't suit me quite so much, and maybe give us a reason as to why? Because I think,
Mhm.
there's the obvious like tubeless and tubed that are clearer, but there's a lot of, I think, lifestyle things, having to buy new clothes for pumps, or does it fit under, like, am I a big exerciser? Like you said, has anything surprised you that you've sort of been confronted with?
Yeah. um a couple things. I think that I'm surprised by how limited most FDA cleared pumps are when it comes to exercise features. When I run, I become very insulin sensitive. And if I don't put on or change my settings in a certain way an hour before my run, I will go low every time. And the only system that's been perfect, nearly perfect at preventing me from going low and keeping me in range in auto mode is our open source apps. And so I think that FDA cleared systems, all of them, have a bit of a ways to go to get there. And I'm hopeful that they get there. Tandem just made big moves with their new algorithm, Control IQ Plus, which allows you to be in temp basal in auto mode, which is great. And they also have a activity feature you can turn on too. I tried that out a bit. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And then another thing that surprised me recently, what with form factor, was I tried Mobi for a few months, and it was the first time I had ever used a tube pump after using Omnipod for 3 years, over 3 years. And it was a challenge for me to wear this pump and have tubing because of all the ways that the tubing interfered with daily activities, whether that's using the toilet, showering, swimming, getting dressed, sex, like whatever it is, like all of these different areas of life where I was like, oh, I have to hold my pump as I'm trying to put underwear on, or I have to take this off, as I'm going to in the shower. Um, I need to charge this. I need to charge my pancreas. Like I wasn't used to that. And there are so many pros to this device too, and to pumps in general. But for me, it's become so normal to wear a device that I just can move around with and not realize it's there. It's just kind of on me. And having a pump that would pull and tug and need to be held in different situations was challenging for me. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm going to continue trying out tube pumps. But I'm not a fan of tubes.
And I think it's important that it's okay for us to feel that feeling, because like I didn't go on a pump for so long because I just was so put off by the idea of having something attached to me. This was pre CGM, when I think it was, much less of a common thing as well. Just where I was at in my life stage, my own personal confidence around my body. And I'm completely okay with saying that. It's not a vanity thing that I mean, it kind of is. And that's okay. Do you know what I mean? That I didn't want the idea, I didn't like the idea of something attached to me. So thank you for saying that. And I think these are really practical considerations as well. Like,
Well, and that was another thing, like, I hate to say it, but when I was wearing my Speedo on the beach, I didn't feel sexy with the
yeah,
Moby, the way I was wearing it, the tubing coming out of the Speedo, the adhesive patch with a tube coming out of it. It just didn't work for me and what I was used to. And I'm so glad that people can have found ways to wear it in ways that they do feel confident. And yes, I would get confident over time with it, but I just in those few months that I wore it, I just never felt like it was my style, what I
right.
wanted to wear.
Yeah, there are different types of car for people. You
Yeah,
might use an Android or an iPhone. It's, people wear different styles of clothing. It's within this small
exactly.
world that we've got. We are entitled to have our opinions and feelings about them. Um, should everyone who has the access to it be using diabetes technology, in your opinion?
I mean, CGM, heck yes. If you have the ability to not to wear CGM and you're not, you need to look at that. You need to reevaluate that, I think, because even though even though yes, you have all this access to information that you didn't have before and maybe that will make you anxious, you can train yourself to not be anxious about it and really just use it and listen for the alerts because they are so helpful and will prevent you from having more lows, will keep you in range more often, and you'll feel better physically. So, yes, you should really look at that if you have access. Pumps and smart pens, I think, have completely I changed my life. Even though I went to them pretty quickly, I know what things were before, and having to inject all the time or not have automated insulin and not have this cushion protecting me from highs and lows, having that has been really helpful. And I think that everyone can find something that will be helpful to them. And if you try one and it doesn't work well, don't just shut yourself off to all of it. Look at what else is there. Create a plan to allow yourself to try a few different ones. Try on, demos, whatever it is, have the conversations and the research, but it will make your life easier. And even if you're listening and you're like, no, it won't, but you've never tried it, you don't understand until you do it. Did you, what was your, like, I know this, you're interviewing me, but like, did you have that switch where
Um,
you're like, "Whoa,"
from pens to pump,
from
you mean?
before automated
Oh,
insulin?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, my first insulin pump, I went straight onto Omnipod because it was the tubeless that kind of tipped me over the line in terms of let's give this a go. And my thinking was always, if you don't like it, you can go back to pens. That's what got me over the line. Um, and it was the tubeless. Like my consultant kind of held out the two options that were available at my hospital at the time, and it was one tubed one, and this white box was just like unfolded in his hand,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh my god, I didn't even know that existed. And from there it was like, yeah, okay. That adjustment, when it actually came to go onto the pump, I was actually quite naive. I am someone who feels my way through, and I thought I could do the same, but I maybe should have done a bit more research. And I was embedded in the community at the time, so I was probably more up to date with the possibilities of insulin pumps than other people. But yeah, I didn't know until I went into that appointment that I was about to give up my long acting insulin, for example. And just like in terms of getting used to how slowly I remember my first meal and the drip of
Mhm.
the dose, the bolus, just taking forever compared to my pen. And I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? But it's obviously accurate dosing. But yeah, it took like I got very frustrated at first because the settings were off. And it just goes to show with these like little tweaks that can place it in place. And then it clicked and off I went. And then I was expecting the same kind of difficulties going on to automated insulin delivery. And I just and I know this isn't everyone's experience, so apologies for that, but it just clicked. And I think that was maybe because
Yeah.
my basal settings were down from being on the previous iteration, but I just skipped out of that door watching it make these decisions on my behalf. And it was like wild to just look at it doing all of that work that I'd been doing for so long.
Yeah, and I feel like oftentimes people will try something for a month and be like, "Nope, didn't work for me. I tried, whatever." And that's not how diabetes tech works. It takes time, months, maybe 3 months to really nail down settings and working with your team, an educator who can help you fine tune all of that. Even with
Right,
Mobi, I tried Mobi for like it was 2.5 months. I think I actually needed 3 months, maybe 4 months to really get it down. But I didn't have that time because the return period that I was 90 days. So
right.
I had to give it back. But um, I wish I had more time with it just to nail down the algorithm more. But just know that really is that like it will take time to
Yeah.
feel normal and to feel secure with it.
Yeah, and the confidence thing I think takes some getting used to as well. Like I tried a bunch of different sites and figured out which ones I liked versus which ones I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stuck to a mini rotation within the ones that made me feel better than the other ones.
Yeah.
It's those kinds of things, I think. Yeah, give yourself a bit of time with that. And actually, I think any kind of new tech, my experience has always been, well, this is exciting, this is interesting, this is different. Like we live in a techie world. Like I'm not, super, super technology focused. Obviously, it's your passion. But even for me, I'm like, ooh, this is fun. What does this do? I didn't have this before. You spoke about being intrigued by the glucometer. I remember like back in the 90s picking out a blood glucose meter from a magazine and being so excited because it was jade green. That was the only difference from my one that the hospital had given me on diagnosis. And I could not wait to get my hands on this jade green glucometer. Like we just love like the new and the shiny. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, of all the announcements and releases and trials that you've got your eye over at the moment, like what are you most excited about that's being worked on? And you spoke about the hope of things continuing to improve in the way that they are. Like what's exciting
And
for
it
you?
and is your question what devices that have been announced that are coming soon, or is it like technologies that could come in the future?
Yeah, I think technologies that could like where all this is going
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. So technology wise, I have reported on work that's been put into a combined CGM and pump. And I'm very hopeful for that because having the amount of technology that we need to rely on from CGM and pump to only one device that can fail, one device that can fall off, whatever it may be, that will make things just so much more simple. So I think that that would be a great technology. I know that that is the direction many other companies are looking at. I don't think it's like a right around the corner. I think that there's a few iterations of devices that are coming first, but the Nia, a pump from Pharmasense, which is the smaller company that has this technology, they have a few um, pumps that they've put out, just demo units that I've seen and wrote about, and those are cool. And I'm hoping that that's lighting a flame under all the other companies that are like, okay, we need to make this. So that's a technology I'd really like to see. One other, like, it's not a technology, but it's an innovation that I'd like to see, which would essentially like kill all diabetes tech. We wouldn't need it anymore. Would be smart insulin that only
Yeah.
activates when it's needed. So you would just take, like, say, one injection a week, and you'd give yourself, 500, I don't know, 100 units of insulin, right? That 100 units of insulin would only be used when it's needed. It will only activate when it senses it needs to be, and then it will just like filter through your system. So whether that's one shot a day or one shot a week, like that would be it. That would be all you need. You're not wearing anything. You're not testing your blood sugar because it's managing it. Like that would be amazing. So, I want that.
I actually can't fathom it. Like, I believe it because, these things are out there, and I've been so kind of dumbfounded by the progress that's been made since I was diagnosed. But just not the day to day of this all. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow, yeah. Okay, well that's hopeful for everyone. We'll hold on to that. So,
Yeah.
speaking of hope and possibility and adventure, let's talk about the digital nomad moment.
Yeah.
So you're traveling full time right now, and you're continuing with all the content creation and the interviews and the work stuff. So tell me where the idea came about, first of all, in terms of packing up.
Yeah, well, I never planned to travel for as long as I have. So I was living in New York the last 3 years, and I think just the city had become a lot to handle, especially through like long COVID fatigue and feeling like I wasn't getting like the best bang for my buck living there and not doing much. So I needed a break from the city. I needed a time and a better place to heal. So I put all my stuff in storage, and I was like, I have a few trips coming up. Like, why not just use those trips as a means to like have housing? And so I kind of bopped around from place to place. And then that led me to December when I went to Mexico City. And when I was in Mexico City, I wound up through a friend meeting someone who was traveling the world with a group of people. They were all going originally through a company that you know and you traveled
Yeah.
with, Remote Year.
Yeah.
Well, the week before they went to leave, Remote Year went bankrupt and their trip was canceled. So this group of people decided to run the trip themselves and reach out to all the city managers in every country they were going to. And I met this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, we're going to Medellin next. People are like, friends are going. Like, you could go." And I had already wanted to go there next in my journeys. Like, I had really been thinking about it, and when he said that, I was like, "Okay." And he's
Love
like
it.
he's like, "I never thought you would actually go." So I that's where it started. I went there, and then I loved the group and meshed really well with them. So from Colombia, I went to Brazil. From Brazil, I came here to Lisbon. And then from next, I go to Valencia, and I may, meet up with them again throughout the year. And um, it's been a really just spontaneous situation that I did not know what was going to happen. It just did.
Did you? I mean, I love it. I mean, Mexico is where I started my nomad adventure with remote year, and then I went to Guatemala, I went to Colombia and Peru. That was my remote year portion of the journey. So yeah, it changed my life, and I'm so excited to have met another type one on this road, albeit in a slightly different guise. But yeah, it's incredible. Did you find once you'd packed up and made that original kind of break to Mexico City that actually making the next decisions in relation to being someone with type 1 diabetes actually you've done the hard bit, or was that a bigger consideration in terms of, okay, how am I going to carry all my supplies for this amount of time and those kinds of questions?
Yeah, I think it was only like it was a quick thought. It was like, all right, like I'm gonna do this, and oh, how am I gonna get my medication? Okay, I guess I'll just get a 3 month supply, and then I'll go to New York at this date, and then I'll pick up another 3 months. Like that's really the main consideration when it came to like, am I gonna do this? Like, because I don't know, I feel like I can be or go anywhere. I just have to have supplies with me. This is my new home. My home has a closet with supplies here, you know? So, and then worst case scenarios, I can walk down the block to the pharmacy and I can get some insulin for 44 euros a vial. I just asked. Or a sensor that lasts 2 weeks for 50 euros, or a box of 100 needles for 7 euros. A lot of this would be free if I had insurance here, but it's cheaper than America even with insurance.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I think, when you only know your own routine and your own reality with type 1 diabetes, of course, this is intimidating, especially if you're going to a country with a language barrier. But like you, like one of the first things I would do when I got to a new place was scope out the pharmacy and see what types of insulin were available and what was on offer on the shelf, and, whether I needed a prescription for anything, more out of curiosity as well. And then I realized like there are people with type 1 diabetes in every country. Like there are ways to do this. And it made me more relaxed. And I don't know, maybe you can speak a bit to your experiences. The more I did and the more I overcame, including dramatic and drastic hypos halfway up mountains, where, there was a brief moment where I thought I might need it to be helicoptered down.
yeah.
But you sort of, I mean, to me, it really proved what I was capable of, and none of it needed to be perfect. I don't know what your relationship is to perfection, but like how this
Well,
experience has been for you.
Well, what I was gonna say is like those are the challenging moments, like the adventuring moments. But
Yeah.
those would be challenging anywhere, even if I stayed home in New York, but I went upstate and I went hiking, right? So it's not the activity of traveling or being in a new city that's challenging. It's the things you're doing that you don't typically do. Eating new foods that you don't need to know to carb count, or eating and then going on a 2 hour walk or jaunt that you're not doing every day. You just need to think ahead with all of that stuff. Going on a hike, going, to the beach, and then you're like, "Oh, to get to the beach, you have to hike through this jungle, by the way." And you didn't know, and you're like, "Oh, well, great. Um, let me figure that out." But learning like, "Oh, ask the questions ahead of time." Like there's been a lot of lessons that you learn with each new adventure, whether you're traveling or not.
Yeah. And that was kind of a lot of my reasoning as well. Not that I ever thought twice about packing up and going from a diabetes perspective. That was never going to stop me. But, you know, I went through a period where I was completely kind of contained. I sort of routined myself, cotton walled myself up, and the quality of my life, like it was boring. And on top of that, I was still having hypos. I was still miscalculating my carbs. I was like, I might as well get out there and live the life I want to live, because this stuff kind of happens anyway. I don't know if you've found that.
Exactly. It happens anyway. You're going to eat something you've never eaten before at a Brazilian restaurant in New York. Well, then just go to Brazil and eat the same thing. Then eat the same thing. Like, like I think it's so easy to psych yourself out or get overwhelmed or scared about something that's new. But you need to remind yourself that people without diabetes are feeling the same way about the same thing, in just maybe in a different way, but they're nervous about it in just another way. Because Doing things that are different and challenging yourself is not a comfortable thing. There's risks, there's excitement. And it's about, again, like I said earlier, rolling with the punches and listening to yourself and thinking ahead. And you can do anything as long as you're doing that.
Yeah, nice. And what's the kind of strangest, weirdest, most surreal experience you've had? And maybe type 1 diabetes came into the picture, maybe it didn't, but I think just in general, since you've been on the move.
Mm. Um, Let me think about that for a second. Wow. Besides like spontaneously just like, okay, I'll travel the world with you. Just
I mean, yeah.
no, yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, I think that I guess one of the biggest lessons that I've had is I kind of I guess said this, but I've gone on some incredible hikes, but I didn't realize how challenging the hikes would be with diabetes because I don't think I've done in the 4 years that I've had diabetes, I don't think I have actually done many adventure hikes during that time period, but because it was COVID also. So the first year of my diagnosis was COVID, roughly. So that leaves 3 years, and in those 3 years, I wasn't, like, doing all these adventures. So I've gotten to do the coolest, hikes up to a cliff overlooking a beach, down having to hold on to trees as you're like going through places, finding waterfalls, going swimming in those waterfalls, almost slipping and like, or doing things that like, you're like, I could die if I slipped the wrong way,
Hmm.
diabetes aside. Um, and that's been so cool. And diabetes wise is like, I have underestimated low snacks to bring on these hikes. And the reason why they were underestimated is because I had underestimated the activity level of the hike. So, yeah, I brought 45 grams worth of sugar. Well, that doesn't matter much because if you set your day, if you just go and do this hike and you have no idea it's going to be intense, you're going to be low. And then you likely will go low and low and low and low again. You can make changes in your treatment a little bit after and do the best you can. But I feel like it's so easy to set yourself up for a disaster if you don't plan an hour ahead your treatment. So, yeah. So those are some of the coolest things I've done, these hikes and outlooks but they're also some of the most challenging things I've done with diabetes.
Yeah, I think I would agree that I did so much more than I ever thought possible. But the times where I was really like, oh, is because I've been living in cities for so much of my life, actually going out into very remote places combined with physical activity, like you say, hiking, um, is where I've been quite kind of confronted, and not in a vulnerability way, in a very physical like that
Yeah,
sugar is dropping.
there's no corner deli to like go
Right,
grab some candy.
exactly, yeah.
It's desolate. You only have what you have in your bag, and thank goodness you have friends that have snacks.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so is there any kind of travel gadget or someone who's into kind of techie things, not necessarily diabetes technology, but is there a travel gadget that you've been really like, wow, I this is a hack? Maybe one or two.
Yeah, there definitely are. I'm like looking around my place right now. I'm like, what's so cool that I have? That's a travel. Oh, dang, I can't show you. Well, I don't know if it's a travel. Yes, okay. So I don't travel around with like my nice camera on these trips. I bring my iPhone. So right now I'm using my iPhone to film and it's pretty good quality and the way I'm able to use that to film it and it connects to my computer through continuity camera. I'm using this little clip called a MagSafe clip. It's from Belkin and it allows you to MagSafe it to your phone and then clip it to the top of your laptop and use that as your web camera. And like this is my favorite device, especially on the go. I've kind of like really put together my equipment for traveling on the go. I've got my Shure microphone that is USB-C. I've got an Elgato key light that is like super flat. It's heavy, but that is really helpful. So like between these three devices, I'm able to create my own little studio, and it's pretty compact. But this clip, I think it's like $25, but it is worth every dollar, every euro, and it's great for like video conferences or recording anything really. And you can like have your notes on your laptop as you're filming too, and you can shoot in both vertical and in horizontal. So, and then
I'm
I'm also wearing this Withings watch, which I love. It's like a fitness tracker, and it's tracking all of my steps, my heart rate, activity, distance, body temperature, and you also get alerts from your phone. So when I get like highs and lows, I get high and low alerts on it, which is pretty
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
I love it. The business of content creation in the diabetes world, I think people will be really fascinated by it, and especially in relation to being on the road. If we can just like dive into that, just for kind of
Yeah.
interest, I think people, listening who have jobs that are very different would be so curious as to how this is kind of taken off, and like whether you're having
Mhm.
fun with it, and do you have a typical day? What's your favorite part of content creation?
Wait, what's the question? Like, what's the
That was
question?
like 5 questions. My
I
bad.
know. I was like, I don't know where to start.
Sorry. I'm conscious of taking up your time.
That's
So,
right.
just for people who aren't in the world of content creation, as a diabetes content creator, I do think people are fascinated by this lifestyle. So, like, do you have a typical day? It seems to me with the content you're putting out, you're having fun with this as well, which is great. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
tell me a little bit.
I've what I've loved about traveling the way I am is like I land in each place for a month, so I am able to create a routine. So in every place I've gone, I've had a co-work space, and I think that that's been a pretty important part of the places I go because I don't want to just be hanging out in my apartment all day. I don't even like doing that when I'm at home. So having a place where I can go be around people, the people that I'm traveling with, new people that I can meet, has been great. So a typical day will, I'll start, I'll go to a cafe. I've found a cafe that allows laptops because a lot of them in Lisbon don't,
Mm,
which I like. I like that they're like, no, like look at people, talk to people, make new friends, converse and have coffee. Don't just open your laptop and use our space, whatever. So I found a place that allows for laptops, but I've even like I'll eat and drink my coffee and then I'll take out my laptop after and like type a little bit and then I'll leave. Like I'm just still conscious of it, which I like. Started a coffee shop, then I go to the co-work space. The one here in Lisbon is phenomenal. Like it's just so beautiful, the view, and I have a great lunch for 10 euros. They cook all the food for you, really healthy. And then after working at the co-work space, I'll go to the gym, and and then I'll go home and either meet up with some friends or just chill. And I like I like just hanging out at home at the end of the night. And then on days where I'm filming, I'll still do the cafe in the morning, and then I'll come back to my apartment and I'll film a bunch of videos. I try to bulk film. I think that that's super important in content creation because if you don't bulk film, you'll spend half of your work time setting up the camera and light. So if you can set it up and then film as much as you can during that, just keep changing your shirt and then like shave in the middle of it or like do your hair different, whatever it is. Um, so I try to just bulk film on those days. So I try to give myself a filming day like every week, one day a week.
nice.
Um,
And were you full-time content creator before you were diagnosed, or was it
yeah,
something you were doing alongside? Oh,
yeah.
you were.
I worked in
Okay.
Hollywood for almost a decade, and then I started my own brand, Justin Tech, which was all tech reviews.
What is the coolest thing about working in the diabetes technology space as a content creator?
I think getting access to the tech earlier, getting embargoed news or like being able to go to, my favorite thing is going to the conferences and having more candid conversations with the people that work at these companies and what they're thinking about on future devices, getting walked through exactly what these new features mean. That access, I think I really enjoy, and it pushes me to provide even more information and have more insight when I am putting out this information.
And apart from your diagnosis, what's the biggest thing that you think you've learned from the community that you serve?
I think that it's to rely on community, that the community is there for you. But I had never been, the only other community that I really felt like I was part of was the gay community, which was phenomenal and helpful and helped me come out and feel comfortable being myself, which is fantastic. But the diabetes community is just so strong and I think really nailed it into my head of community is there to help you engage with that community. And everyone should if they need help or have a question.
Amazing. For people who aren't yet following you, where can people find you? What can they expect to find? And yeah, just tell us where they can connect with you and say hello.
Yeah. All across my platforms, you'll learn about diabetes technology, research, innovations, interviews with people who are, the leads at these companies or diabetes educators who talk about management or people using the technology themselves. And I also do reviews on technology and even just lifestyle things and life with diabetes. My handle on almost every platform is Diabe_tech, DIABE_tech. And I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I have a blog, diabetech.info, where I put out that's where you'll see as soon as news drops, that's where the news goes first and then siphons out elsewhere.
Amazing. Thank you. And I'll put all of that in the show notes. I've seen your work great. I've seen your dedication. I've seen your motivation, and it's phenomenal. And I think you're doing such a service because, I mean, I've been living with this for 29 years and the tech still goes over my head and I'm using it. So thank you for what you're doing. What's the goal? What's coming up for you in the next kind of weeks, months, years?
Oh, and I also forgot to say I have a podcast and you're coming on the podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, everyone needs to go listen to that. So the Diabetic podcast. What's next in life? I don't know, stability. I would love that. I would love a home and a husband and 3 kids and money for that, and a partner. I don't know. I do see myself landing somewhere soon. I mean, I've loved Lisbon. It would be so cool to live here. So I'm looking at visas. So that's, I don't know. The answer is I have no idea what's going to happen in a month and a half from now. And that's kind of just how I'm living my life. But I'm able to, and I feel very grateful for that my job allows me to explore and not stay put and learn about myself and be challenged in so many new ways. So all I can tell you is that the answer today is different than the answer tomorrow.
That's such a cool note to end on. I think not having the answers and just putting one foot in front of the other is, well, it's how I have lived my life, but it's also how I kind of handle my type 1 diabetes. So thank
Exactly.
you so much. Yeah. There's only so much we can know, right? Before you just have to move on forward. Thank you so much for this inspiring chat. And I'll see you in person in Valencia. And to make that meta and join the dots, there will be more content coming from me and thee. So I'm very excited to get into some travel gems over on YouTube. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear all your stories. That's going to be great.
Oh, there are some stories. Yeah.
Yay.
And for you guys listening, that should all be live on YouTube, all being well. I should say that with more certainty. That is now live on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you head over to Miss Jen Grieves, you will find it there, but I'll link everything, where you can find Justin, where you can find our content in the show notes. So thank you so much, Justin, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Type 1on1. Please remember that nothing you hear on this podcast should be taken as medical advice. I'm definitely not a healthcare professional. If you like what you hear, hit subscribe and do leave a little review on iTunes if you have time. It really helps to spread the word about type 1 diabetes. And thank you so much for listening.